In the heart of a dense forest, far from the nearest town, stood a secluded Airbnb known as Whispering Pines. It was a rustic cabin with wooden beams and large windows that offered breathtaking views of the trees that seemed to stretch endlessly. The owner, an elderly woman named Agnes, had kept the place in pristine condition. Rumors surrounded the cabin, stories of strange noises, flickering lights, and inexplicable disappearances. Yet, the allure of the untouched wilderness and Agnes's warm hospitality lured visitors every summer. One late October evening, a young woman named Lily booked the cabin for a weekend getaway. After a grueling semester at university, she craved solitude and the chance to recharge. She packed her bags, filled her car with supplies, and set off, her mind filled with visions of cozy evenings by the fire, sipping hot cocoa, and journaling about her life. Upon arrival, Lily was greeted by Agnes, whose smile, though kind, held a hint of something unsettling. "You'll find it peaceful here," Agnes said, her voice low and gravelly. "But remember, the woods can be deceptive. Listen closely, and you'll hear them whisper." Lily chuckled nervously, dismissing it as a harmless quip, but something about Agnes's expression sent a shiver down her spine. After settling in, Lily explored the cabin. It was charmingly furnished, with a small kitchen, a living room filled with mismatched antiques, and a loft bedroom that overlooked the trees. As night fell, she lit the fireplace and settled into a worn armchair with her journal. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves, and the forest seemed to breathe. Around midnight, Lily was jolted awake by a sound. It was faint at first, almost like a soft whisper, weaving through the trees. She brushed it off as the wind playing tricks. But as the hours passed, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They seemed to call her name, weaving it into the rustling of the leaves. "Lily, come." Panic began to creep into her thoughts. She dismissed it, convincing herself it was just her imagination. Yet the whispers persisted, wrapping around her like an insidious fog. In an attempt to distract herself, she decided to take a late-night walk, hoping the cool air would clear her mind. Outside, the moon illuminated the forest path, casting eerie shadows that danced between the trees. As she walked deeper into the woods, the whispers morphed into frantic murmurs. "Help us. Find us." Each step felt heavier, and an overwhelming sense of dread settled in her stomach. Lily turned back, but the path seemed different, almost labyrinthine, as if the woods were shifting around her. Panic clawed at her chest. She stumbled through the underbrush, branches snagging at her clothes. Suddenly, she heard a sharp crack, like a twig snapping behind her. She spun around, heart racing, but there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of the forest. Finally, she burst back into the clearing where the cabin stood, breathless and trembling. She locked the door behind her and sat on the floor, leaning against the wooden frame. The whispers faded, but left a lingering chill in the air. In a desperate attempt to calm herself, she turned on the television, the flickering light providing a semblance of comfort. The next day, Lily awoke late, sunlight streaming through the windows. The whispers were gone, but the unease remained. She decided to hike the nearby trails, hoping to shake off the previous night's terror. The forest was stunning in the daylight, with vibrant autumn leaves painting the landscape. But as she walked, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sensation of eyes lurking behind every tree. By evening, she returned to the cabin, exhausted but relieved. As the sun set, she prepared a simple meal and settled down with a book. Yet, just as she began to relax, the whispers returned. They were softer now, but unmistakable. "Lily, join us." This time she felt a cold dread wash over her. Something was wrong. Determined to confront her fear, she stepped outside, but the forest felt alive, the trees closing in around her. The whispers rose to a crescendo, a cacophony of desperate voices pleading, "Help us! Find us!" In a moment of terror, Lily ran. She darted into the cabin, locking every door and shuttering the windows. The whispers turned to a wailing, echoing through the night. Frantic, she grabbed her phone, but there was no signal. She was cut off from the world, trapped in this nightmare. Hours passed, and the wailing subsided into an eerie silence. Exhausted, she curled up on the couch, praying for dawn. As the first light crept through the windows, she felt a momentary sense of relief. But when she looked at her phone, there was still no signal. Fear gnawed at her. She needed to leave. Packing her bags, Lily opened the door to find the forest bathed in mist. The trees loomed ominously, and the path seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. Steeling herself, she stepped out, every instinct screaming to turn back. As she walked, the whispers began again, now swirling around her like a tempest. "Lily, come back." She stumbled, disoriented, as the whispers intensified. Each step felt like wading through molasses, her legs heavy as if the forest were pulling her back. In a moment of desperation, she sprinted down the path, branches clawing at her, the whispers rising to a furious roar. "Join us!" Just as she broke free from the tree line, she turned back, heart racing. The cabin stood silent, the mist enveloping it like a shroud. The whispers echoed in her mind, and she stumbled to her car, praying it would start. The engine roared to life, and she sped down the gravel road, leaving whispering pines behind. But the further she drove, the more the whispers lingered in her ears, calling her back. Weeks later, her friends reported her missing when she failed to return to campus. The authorities searched the area but found no trace of her. The cabin remained, shrouded in whispers and mystery. Agnes, the elderly owner, stood at the edge of the forest one evening, staring into the trees. She felt the chill in the air and heard the faint whispers beckoning once more. "Another one," she murmured to herself, a knowing smile creeping across her face. "They always return." And so the story of Lily became just another chapter in the legend of Whispering Pines, a cautionary tale for those drawn to the forest, forever haunted by the echoes of the lost.